Good morning, Mets fans, and welcome to a Tuesday edition of Driving with Mr. Met. I am Mr. Met, and the Championship Series are well underway at this point. The NLCS is currently being led by the Brewers 2-1, and the ALCS is knotted up at 1 apiece. I want to talk about those series thus far, and I want to talk a little bit about the Mets GM search on today's show. If you're a baseball fan, the Championship Series, both of them have been really great and really fun, but a little different. Very 2018. Watching starting pitchers leave games super early in favor of bullpen pitching. Game 1 of the NLCS was a little bit crazy, where Craig Counsell went to the bullpen like in the third inning, and really, dangerously overused Josh Hader for 3 innings, making him pretty much unavailable for Game 2. Jeremy Jeffress has struggled a little bit out of the bullpen for the Brew Crew, but last night, despite getting himself into trouble, he got himself out of trouble, and the Brewers took a 2-1 lead over the Dodgers at Chavez Ravine. So it is 2-1 Brewers in the NLCS. I'm sticking with my prediction. The Brewers are going to win the National League pennant, and I'm also sticking with my prediction in the AL. I think the Astros are going to win the AL pennant. The ALCS is knotted up at 1 game apiece. They split at Fenway and pick up with Game 3 this evening in Houston. And this will be the big test for the Red Sox. Can they take 2 games in Houston? It's essential that they do to make sure that this series can get back to Fenway, and they're not with their backs against the wall when they get there. The ALCS has been tons of fun. The Astros, it's funny, I talked about this before. The Astros are the defending world champions and are an unbelievably great team. And I personally overlooked them heading into the playoffs. I really did. I really felt like it was the Red Sox or bust. And after watching the two teams play, I'm leaning toward the Astros. I was leaning toward the Astros before this series began, and if you had talked to me 2 weeks ago, I would have said no way the Astros are going to win. I thought the Red Sox were going to run away with the AL pennant, but I don't believe that anymore. Interestingly, I mentioned Jeremy Jeffress struggling. Craig Kimbrell has struggled as well for the Red Sox. He coming into his free agent season, he has not looked great. He has not looked like his dominant self out of the bullpen. And that's got to be a little bit of a concern for Kimbrell, because he is going to be a free agent. And I don't know if this is going to impact his next contract. It would for me, if I were the guy making writing the checks and making these personnel decisions. I don't know that I'd be as high on Craig Kimbrell as I might have been, before this postseason started. I don't think Kimbrell has been he's been very hittable. He's been very human, very un-Kimbrell-like. But that's neither here nor there. He's not someone the Mets were likely to get anyway. So I'm not really that concerned about it from a Mets perspective. I want to talk about Yasmani Grandal, the catcher for the Dodgers, who's had about as poor a 3 games as you could possibly have on both sides of the ball. Really, but defensively in particular, he's been dreadful in the NLCS, to the point where last night at Dodger Stadium, the Dodgers fans were actively booing him. And that's a shame, because Grandal is a good catcher. He's just having a really rough patch. And it concerns me a little bit, because he's one of the names that the Mets have sort of floated out there as a potential target. And, after seeing the way he's performed in the NLCS, I'm really hoping the Mets don't go out and sign him. I just don't think that he's going to be worth the money he's going to cost. I would rather see the Mets try to make a big, strong push for Wilson Ramos. I've said that before as well. So I'm sticking with that. But I am sticking with my prediction. I'm sticking with the Brewers and the Astros in the World Series. Who I'm going to pick there ultimately depends on how overused the Brewers bullpen continues to be. Yes, they're a huge strength for the Brewers, no question about it. They're one of the reasons why the Brewers have been so good. It was interesting to hear last night that of their starting rotation, only Jhoulys Chacín had 10 or more wins. That's nuts for a team that won 97 games. But they did so on the strength of their bullpen all season, and they're going to be riding that into the deep into the playoffs here, and into the World Series, presuming they make it. My concern is, in such a short period of time, when you're asking the bullpen to give you 5-6 innings a night, that is going to catch up with you. It doesn't matter how good your bullpen is. It is going to catch up with you if you overuse them, you overwork them. So that's my only concern for the Brewers going forward, that they burn the bullpen too much. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. It'll depend on what happens over the next couple of days. I'll be able to make my prediction probably by NLCS Game 5 is what I'll say, if I feel the Brewers are going to be in trouble in the World Series. Really quick to shift to the Mets. Some troubling news, if you believe it. Yesterday came out on Twitter. Mike Puma, I think, was the first one to report it. But there's been a lot of chatter about the Mets being unable to attract some of the younger, hipper names that you might be looking at as a potential GM or VP of baseball operations candidate. And the commentary basically, or the storyline around that basically, is that none of these younger analytical guys want to take a job with the Mets because they know they're going to be under the thumb of the Wilpons. And I don't know how true it is, but it's troubling to hear that that's even a story that's being reported. The Mets have, I think Matt Ehalt posted it last night on Twitter, the Mets have a really good starting rotation. They have a promising core of young players. They have a pretty well-developed farm system at the lower levels that are going to be making their way up through the ranks, either as potential major leaguers themselves or as trade chips in the very short future. And yet still the Mets can't seem to attract the big names to want to come and be the GM of the Mets. Again, I don't know how true it is, but it's really sad if it is true, and it sucks if it is true. A couple of the names that, really the one name that's sticking out to me is Gary LaRocque, who, if you guys listen to or follow Mike Silva, he talked about Gary LaRocque about a month and a half ago as the front runner for this job. And when I first heard that, I was like, who the hell is Gary LaRocque? And then I looked him up and I realized, well, he was with the Mets already. He knows the system. The Wilpons know him. Not one of these high-profile, Ben Sherrington, Theo Epstein types, but still more than likely a very quality and capable executive. And if that ends up being the guy, so be it. Honestly, I hate to say this, but with the Wilpons being as involved as they seem to be, and Jeff in particular, I don't know that it matters all that much who the Mets sign to be their VP of player operations or VP of baseball, or whatever the hell they're going to call this GM type. I don't know that it matters. And again, that sucks too, because it seems like no matter what we do, we're always stuck in this whirlpool that is the Wilponville, if for lack of a better word. I don't know. Again, I'm hoping it's not true. I'm hoping these rumors are not accurate, but we'll find out, won't we? Because pretty soon I suspect the Mets will be making an announcement as to who they're going to be bringing into the second, more in-depth round of interviews. I also need to make the comment that I feel really badly for John Ricco, who has been involved in round one, allegedly, or that's what it's been reported as, at least, and he will not be involved in round two. And then there's questions as to whether or not he will be involved with the franchise going forward. So John Ricco is helping evaluate the general manager candidates, and he may not be with the team shortly. So very Metsy, very Metsy thing to happen, but whatever. I will be back sometime later this week to catch up on where things stand with the Championship Series in both the AL and the NL. I thank you for watching today. I appreciate it, as I always do. Follow me on Twitter if you're not already following me on Twitter at Mr_Met. And as always, let's go Mets.